Most environmental problems today don't come from a lack of awareness. They come from misunderstanding. People care more than ever about the environment. They recycle, they try to reduce waste, they follow trends that claim to be eco-friendly. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Some of the most popular environmental beliefs are not just incomplete, they're actively misleading. And when people act on the wrong ideas, even good intentions can lead to the wrong outcomes. Let's start with one of the most common beliefs. If everyone just does small things, it will be enough. This idea sounds reasonable, it's empowering, it gives people a sense of control, but it's also deeply misleading. Turning off lights, avoiding plastic straws, bringing reusable bags, these actions do have value, but they represent a very small fraction of total environmental impact. The majority of emissions and environmental damage comes from large-scale systems, energy production, industrial manufacturing, transportation networks, and global agriculture. These systems operate far beyond individual daily choices. So what happens when people are told that small actions are enough? They focus their energy on low-impact changes, while high-impact systems remain untouched. It creates a gap between effort and outcome. People feel like they're helping, but the overall system doesn't change fast enough. Now consider another widely accepted idea. Recycling will solve the waste problem. Recycling is one of the most promoted environmental solutions in the world, but in reality, it's limited. A large percentage of plastic waste is never recycled. Some materials are too contaminated, others are too expensive to process, and many plastics degrade each time they are recycled, meaning they can only be reused a few times. More importantly, recycling doesn't stop waste from being created. It only deals with waste after it already exists. If production continues to increase, which it does, recycling can't keep up. The system depends much more on reducing consumption and reusing materials than on recycling alone. But those solutions are harder to scale and less convenient, so they receive less attention. Another dangerous misconception is that if a product is labeled green, it must be environmentally friendly. This is where perception becomes more important than reality. Words like eco, natural, and sustainable are often used in marketing, but they don't always reflect real impact. A product can appear environmentally friendly while still causing significant damage during production, transportation, or disposal. For example, something labeled biodegradable may only break down under specific industrial conditions. A product made from natural materials may still contribute to deforestation or habitat destruction. This is known as greenwashing, and it shifts focus away from real environmental impact towards branding. Next is a belief that feels optimistic but carries risk. Technology will solve the problem. There's some truth here. Technology is essential. Renewable energy, energy storage, and efficiency improvements are all critical, but relying on future solutions without changing current behavior creates a dangerous imbalance. Environmental damage is happening continuously. If solutions don't scale fast enough, the problem grows faster than the fix. There's also something less obvious happening. As technology becomes more efficient, it often becomes cheaper and more accessible. And when something becomes cheaper, people tend to use more of it. This is called the rebound effect. Efficiency improves, but total consumption increases. So technology alone doesn't guarantee reduced impact. Another persistent myth is that climate change is something that will affect the future. In reality, it's already affecting the present. Changes in temperature, weather patterns, and ecosystems are happening now, but because these changes often occur gradually, they don't always feel urgent. That creates a psychological delay. People respond stronger to immediate visible threats than to slow systemic changes, even if those changes are more dangerous over time. This delay reduces the window for effective action. Then there's a critical misunderstanding about priorities. All environmental actions matter equally. They don't. Some actions have significantly higher impact than others. For example, energy sources and food systems contribute far more to global emissions than many everyday habits. But when everything is presented as equally important, it becomes difficult to prioritize. Effort gets spread thin,
And without prioritization, efficiency drops. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most. Another idea that sounds harmless, but isn't. If it's natural, it's safe. Nature itself is not automatically sustainable. What matters is scale and management. Natural resources can be overused just like synthetic ones. Forests can be depleted, fisheries can collapse, soil can degrade. The origin of a material doesn't determine its impact, the way it's used does. Now consider one of the most damaging beliefs of all. The problem is too big to solve. This doesn't come from ignorance, it comes from overwhelm. Environmental systems are complex. The scale is global, the timeline is long. It's easy to feel like individual or even collective actions won't make a difference. But this belief creates inaction, and inaction allows systems to continue unchanged. The reality is more nuanced. Large-scale environmental improvements have happened before. The ozone layer began recovering after global regulation. Some rivers have been restored after pollution controls. Wildlife populations have rebounded when habitats were protected. These changes didn't happen instantly, but they happened because systems were adjusted. So what's the real issue behind all these myths? They simplify complex problems into something easier to understand but less accurate. And when people act based on simplified assumptions, results don't match expectations. That leads to frustration and eventually disengagement. So what actually works? Real environmental progress happens across 3 levels. First, system-level change. Energy systems, food production, infrastructure, these have the largest impact. Second, policy and regulation. Standards, incentives, and restrictions shape how systems operate. Without policy, change is slow and inconsistent. Third, targeted individual behavior. Not everything, just the high-impact actions. The goal isn't to do more, it's to do what matters most. In the end, the biggest environmental risk isn't that people don't care. It's that they care but are guided in the wrong direction. Because once people believe they understand the problem, they stop questioning it. And that's when real damage continues, quietly, steadily, and largely unnoticed.